Alright guys, I'm doing a voiceover real quick just because my mic didn't work on the camera I was using. But the first step is removing the battery tray, as I was pointing to earlier. While we're doing that, we have to remove the radiator hose. We actually have to drain all the fluid from the radiator. We also have to remove the heater lines, which you see those two lines in the center kind of going back to the firewall. We have to remove that. Once all that stuff is removed, I went ahead and took a glove, wrapped it around all the inlets there, taped them close so nothing would fall in. I actually cutted the fingers off the gloves to get on the smaller hoses, taped them close so nothing would fall into it. Once we did that, like I said, we had to drain all the fluid out, make sure that was all good to go. We didn't have to remove the radiator, but we do have to install the condenser in front of it. We had to loosen up the radiator just to slide the new brackets into place, which we'll show you here in a little bit. On the inside, we do have the blower that we have to remove, which was actually fairly easy to remove. Just had a couple of screws. Once the blower is out, then we have the heater tubing that goes across. Basically, it's called the defrost tubing there. We have to remove that. We have to remove the glove box door, which I just opened. We have to remove the stuff that's inside of it. Basically, clear everything from underneath. The wiring underneath this thing was horrible. As you can see, some of the wiring there was actually for the radio, but it's actually worse underneath the steering column. All that stuff is basically organized, primo. I'll show it to you a little bit later on. But the heater was a little difficult to unbolt in the beginning. There was also pull cables basically to open up the vents, which you can kind of see a little bit towards the top left corner there. Basically you pull this knob and it opened and closed any vents. Some of this wiring here you could see was done. Alright guys, so as you can see, there's a lot of wiring issues in here. Wires hanging down all over. So I'm going to be basically cleaning this up. These wires here, these are speaker wires for the radio, and they were tied on basically with electrical wire connectors, which is kind of BS, especially for a car like this. So I'm going to basically clean everything up, put all the wires together, dress it up real neat, and show you what it looks like afterwards. Alright, so here I'm going to be basically fast forwarding it through, but basically I was repairing some of the wiring. I basically did some splice points, soldering. That's what I'm doing now, is melting some of the soldering in these connectors. Same thing over here. I also used some shrink wrap to make sure everything was nice and neat and very professional. Cleaned everything up. Extended some of the speaker wires. I just could not fully replace because it went throughout the whole car just to get to the speakers in the back. There was speakers missing out of the door. They only had speaker covers in the door just for show, but I actually went ahead and ran extra speaker wire for that. Now up here, we did get the bolts loosened out for the blower, and I'm basically just talking about how we're going to get the blower out and how there's actually fluid trapped inside, which is why it's really important to cover these inlets here so none of the fluids pour out when you pull the heater out. Just make sure these inlets are pointed upward while pulling out so it doesn't spill on your carpet.
Send it through and see how it looks so far. Alright guys, so it bolts on by 2 bolts. One bolt right there and another bolt right there. This hole here actually had a plug. We had to remove the plug. The hole actually wasn't big enough for the bolt. I had to make the hole bigger. So it was really rough to get this in. I couldn't really videotape trying to get it in because it's just tight quarters. You couldn't really see much, but we're making progress here. So we got our lines here where we want them. We are gonna have to get some plugs and plug these up here, basically with some bolts and a cap, just to make sure it's pretty solid. But let's start connecting these lines. All right, guys, so the condenser is in. We had to put screws here, which I'm missing one right there, which I'm going to do here in a second. But we basically bolted the brackets here, 6 bolts, 3 on each side. The plates actually has to slide inside here, not on the outside, or the holes won't match up for the screws. Condenser's in. Next thing we need to do is get the lines for here and then put the template on this wall, and we're going to have to be drilling through this wall. And we're going to be doing that next. Let me show you the other side real quick. So I modified the lock here because it was too long and it was putting pressure on this, and this wouldn't actually slide in. So I actually cut off a good probably an inch. The lock itself is in the same position, but I just made this inch shorter. It's still solid. It's not going anywhere. It's really tight, and it's pretty far away from the condenser, so it won't damage anything. And this side, this is how we did it right here. You do have to take off the 2 horns on both sides. This one is still off because we got to work in this area. But this one had to come out for us to do the bolts. And that's about it. So let's get going.
All right, so this is a template that comes with the kit itself. Basically, it's showing you how to line everything up with the existing marks that are there. You have to drill a 1 1/4 hole. Just checking the other side to make sure we're not going to damage anything once we punch through. And let's go ahead and cut that hole and see what happens.
No, you don't need that. Okay.
Alright, so we ended up drilling that hole now. The paper kind of got rounded up, but we do need to do another bolt here. Luckily, there's enough paper left for us to figure where that is. Alright, let's knock that out. Alright guys, so this is the hard line right here for the AC. I have 4 inlets right over there. I got one already to a heater hose. And then now this one is basically going to go like this. Just like that. And then down to our dryer that's right in there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And you're going to watch.
Critical hit.
Alright guys, so I got that end in, and then I also got this end in the dryer. Where is it? Right there. And I did have to bend it out just a little bit to get it in there. There is room for adjustment, but as you can see, it's not 100% flush there. But it actually calls for a strap right here. They only give you one in the kit, but I'm going to actually end up putting 2. Use some self-tappers, get them right in there. They actually give you a screw. I don't know what you expect to screw it into, but that's what we're going to be doing. So let me go ahead and knock that out. Alright, so here's the compressor. It is pretty well built, as you can see. We're going to get this out of here and then see if we can start setting it up. It's kind of strapped in there. Alright, so I got it out of the box. This is just an adjustment diagram for your radius here and where the center line is. Pretty simple. And here's this bad boy. Look at this. And these 2 boxes actually has mounting brackets for this to mount in the engine bay. And they're pretty heavy duty and thick metal as well. Check that out. Alright, so let me figure out how this goes, and then I basically show you where it goes in the engine compartment. Stay tuned. Alright guys, I'm pretty exhausted. I've been working on this car all day. I'm now working in the engine compartment. I'm trying to do the compressor, and I just realized that I gotta take the alternator apart and move it on the other side of the engine just for the compressor to fit. And apparently that's what you have to do. So let me show you exactly what I need to do. Alright, so all this I gotta take out and move it over here above the power steering pump. And apparently that is common, what you need to do. Here's a side shot. I gotta start removing all of this. So let me go ahead and knock that out. I don't have a stand for this camera, but let me knock that out and I'll show you how it looks afterwards. Alright, so I got the alternator out. As you can see, it ain't there no more. So now we're going to be mounting the brackets. Basically, for the first one, it's going to be mounted like this, and the compressor is going to sit right up here. I wish I had a stand for this camera because I kind of would show you basically how it's all put together, but let me go and install some parts at a time, and I'll show you guys per each part how it looks when it's installed. Alright, so I went ahead and got the bracket in for the compressor, so that's going to be the compressor there. The two lines right there are actually going to be tied in to over there, and I'm basically going to be showing you that. But this bracket was pretty rough to kind of get in and organize. I first got the wrong bracket, had to send it back, got a new bracket in, but this is all set up. This can adjust, pivot one side to the next, get the belt right here, send it to over here. Now the next thing we still need to do is change the bracket for the power steering pump. It is the wrong bracket. And then we also have a new bracket for the alternator for this side, and that's pretty much how that's going to be looking there. And that's going to be it for this area for today, and that's it. Hope it's looking good so far. Look at that. If you haven't followed me through Instagram, do follow me, because I am posting photos as I'm doing these builds. So do follow me at Instagram. Link is going to be below. Alright guys, that's a wrap for this episode. We pretty much probably have one more episode left on this installation of the Vintageair system. There's times where it's easy, and there's some times where you actually have to modify things as you go, as you can see during this episode as it is. But from now, it should be smooth sailing. As soon as everything starts getting plugged in, we'll be able to tie everything in, start adjusting everything. The only issue that we're having now is the control knobs. We didn't get one of the washers. I'm just waiting for a nylon washer to come in so we can work on that part. Got to get the alternator in, as I mentioned previously. I got the compressor in, which is awesome. Now I just need to get new belts as well, so I can lock them in where they're going to be, and I can run the hoses, measure them, cut them, and then crimp them. The next cool thing we're going to be doing is crimping the AC lines. I do have a hydraulic crimper that I actually got a few months back, or a month ago. I don't know if you've been watching my Instagram, but I did post it on there. Not knowing I actually need it for this installation, but I'm glad I have it, and I'm going to be using it. So make sure you like and subscribe. Just follow this thing right here. Make sure you check out my website for merch. That's the one I'm wearing now. I got a bunch of stuff in there: sweaters, shirts, women's clothing, men's clothing. Check that out. And that's about it. So check out the next one. Peace out.